We've all been taught to start, run, and grow a business, and that would lead you to success. That model and those days are over.
So welcome everyone to WorkPod, and today we have with us Kent Billingsley. So if you are here to learn about how to get your revenue model right, how to get your profitability right, you're on the right show. Kent is an expert in that, and he runs a company called the Revenue Growth Company. Pretty clear on what he does. And then he's the author of the book Entrepreneurial to Millionaire, which we'll dig into at the later part of the conversation. So Kent, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Very nice to be here.
Awesome. So walk us through our audience. Why focus on revenue? What is so fascinating about revenue?
Yeah, and I'm going to go back 25 years. I'm going to go way back. And I was working inside a large corporation, and I was actually doing Salesforce optimization, implementing complex sales methodologies and things like that. And the leadership had asked me to form a team and go back and look at their organizations, their strategic business units, and try to uncover or discover how they could bring more consistent growth, continue to be competitive, but really at the end of the day is to learn how to make money, how to optimize their business using the resources they already have. And so that's been my focus all my life or for the last 25 years. And I want to go ahead and expand on the question that you've got. And one of the things is that business growth and how I define revenue growth are two different concepts. And it's really important that your audience starts to learn and understand the differences, because one will help you build a bigger business. The other one is going to help you create wealth inside your business, which is more critical today than ever before.
Interesting. So if you look at the business nowadays, rarely we hear about the word revenue. So all we hear about is growth. And I think even if you look from the stock, from the financial numbers point of view, if you look at the price earning ratio of many companies that exist today, it looks like we are living in a different world today, right? So many companies, they keep on raising money without showing any road to revenue, any clarity, and with this sort of this hyper growth phenomena and having no insight on the revenue. How do you bring that to peace in your journey to fix growth in these companies?
Yeah, so it's been interesting in the thousands of clients we've had in our programs. On occasion, we get that client that says our goal and our game is market share. We're just gobbling up market share. We're not about profitability. We're not about are we making any money doing it. Amazon's a great example. Uber. There's a lot of companies that they're on a quest or a mission to grab the market share as fast as they can because they know their competitors at their heels. They're trying to do the same thing. We get those clients, and you know what? I never tell a client, a CEO or an entrepreneur what their goals need to be. I just try to understand them and say, all right, well, let me help you build the model that will help you achieve those goals in the fastest time using the fewest resources. Because the valuation of a company at the end of the day is still, does it make money? Is it going to be profitable at some point? And I would say, I'm trying to think of a percentage, maybe 95 to 97% of our clients, they need to show profitability. They need to show cash flow, cash on hand. They need to create working capital. They need to have money in the bank today. And I'll talk about that later. That really drove the name of the book is so many companies are getting wiped out today because they have no money in the bank. They ran so lean and they spent their money to achieve growth, and they might have gotten bigger. Now they can't survive.
Interesting. And in your journey, so what are some of the what we call pitfalls that you find people that you are helping or supporting or engaging with that they fall into when it comes to their understanding of revenue or road to the revenue? So what would you say?
Yeah, the biggest thing today is still following philosophies and paradigms from last century. And those things include if I build it, they will come. I need to spend money to make money. Sales is sales. I mean, there's just so many paradigms that actually worked last century. Half my career was last century, 20 years, and half my career has been this century. Um, those were good models last year. Here's another one. To be successful as an entrepreneur or business owner, start, run, and grow a business. And if you do that, there's a good chance you'll be successful. Those days are gone. There is no correlation to growing a business and being successful today. And yet tens of thousands, maybe millions of entrepreneurs, business owners, and their employees are all following these models. And I've come along starting 25 years ago, and I've said, let's test those models. Let's fight through those models to see which ones will continue to work over time. And so that's the great mistake today is following and believing the models that worked last century will still work today. And here's the reason: they kind of do work. You'll hear a story every day about some entrepreneur. He started, ran, or she started and ran a business and sold it, and they're successful. I've got 500 stories of them not going anywhere, but nobody writes those stories. We write the percentages, but we always hear about that one. Oh, well, I need to do that. I need to follow that model, and really, you don't. That we're still the one that if I build it, they will come. Meaning that if I offer this product or service, I'm going to have a market, I'm going to have a business, I'm going to be successful. They're not. The prospects aren't calling, they're not coming, they're not returning emails. There's too many choices, too many options, too many disruptions. Business has transformed externally on levels no one ever imagined or dreamed. Yet most companies are still operating the same on the inside.
Interesting. So, if you look at the times today, if you look at, we are in the middle of pandemic. COVID has impacted a lot of business models. It has definitely impacted many companies' ability to think of revenue, let alone keeping themselves alive. How would how would you sort of evaluate that scenario? What would you suggest to those businesses who are saying, hey, I can't even talk about growth, let alone revenue? What would you say to those guys?
Yeah, and so we go back to the beginning. We go back into a phase that I call revenue ready, and back in that phase is where the real genesis for starting a business, which is solving a marketplace problem or exploiting a marketplace opportunity. We go back to those days and say, is that still true? Is that problem still exist and in the same way it did, or has it morphed or evolved? In many cases, it has morphed or evolved. I'm living the example. I can't do backer room sales. I can't. We were just talking today about trying to do a book signing event. I can't get more than 10 people in a room in most venues. I mean, my models that I worked under the last 20 years have been shattered. So the good news is several years ago, I was already transitioning and morphing my models, my content, my products, all those things because, and I didn't see the pandemic coming. I just knew the business was being disrupted. It was being commoditized, and everybody's business is. And so you've got to go back and say, okay, the thing that if you've been in business 10 or 20 years, is the reason we formed our business back then still here today? How has it changed? And is our model supportive of that new paradigm? If not, you've got to change. And in almost all cases, it's changed.
Okay. And if we think about last 20, 30 years, right? So we are seeing .com, we have seen dot bust, we have seen financial market crash, we have seen. So there has been a lot of cyclical evolution that has happened, and that's why business models are constantly being disrupted and being re-challenged. How would you see that as a guide when it comes to businesses' ability to fix their revenue model when things are changing so rapidly fast, and they don't get a time to sort of solidify a business model?
Oh, yeah. So you want to attack this several different ways. One of those ways is you should always be transforming. You should always be looking at your model and adapting to the changes and as best you can predict those changes. Another way, and I spend a whole chapter talking about, you should have multiple revenue streams. Those restaurants that had basically all walk-in traffic and no other revenue streams, they're if whether the government shut them down or for whatever reason clients didn't come through their door, most of them are out of business and may never open again. But those that, and I've helped many of those understand that, well, why aren't you doing catering? Why didn't you get in the B2B space besides the B2C? Why weren't you prepared operationally for delivery or takeout? Every business must have what I call a Goldilocks of revenue streams. You don't want to have too many, 15, 20, or 30, but you do want to have a Goldilocks. Now, the more advanced is you have what are called non-traditional or non-conventional revenue streams. And examples like that are insurance companies that use the money to invest in the markets to make their money. McDonald's is in the real estate business as opposed to the burger business. I mean, those are getting into more non-traditional, non-conventional ways to generate revenues. And that's why I separate out, I say sales, revenues, and profits, because if you can create those other revenue streams, you can take on a lot more risk, or you can get through a lot more tough economic times. So you want to attack this different ways. Another way is, and I spent a chapter talking about this, is morphing your model over time to make sure that you're prepared for if things happen. And you bring up a very astute point. You don't look old enough to know these things, but yes, I've lived through the S&L crisis. I've lived through in the 90s. There was a crisis in 2000, the tech wreck, and then we thought we were going to have Y2K, and then there was the 2007, 2008. Every 1 to 2 times a decade, there is a major crisis that just comes through like a tsunami and wipes out a lot of businesses. We know that. Prepare for that. Be ready. This is why it's so critical today to create wealth in your business so you can take on those monsoons, not just that rainy day. So you're absolutely right on in your comment.
Well said, Ken. So if you are a business today and you're grappling the fact whether I should be a growth company or a revenue company, and so how would you see it? Like, what do I need? Are these situational based, or how would you evaluate that? Which one I should be siding more, and what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, you can always choose what you want to be, but at the end of the day, it's the market. What's the potential in what I call scope and scale? In other words, what's and I call it the fundamental marketplace problem. What's the scope and scale of the problem you're solving? And what's the future earnings potential of solving those problems, and in what way? Not every market is a sustainable, viable, high profit business, and so you kind of have to work through that. And that's where I think you need alignment between your business goals for your venture and then what the market can create or bear. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs make mistakes. They get so excited about the market's enormous and I'm going to make all this money. And they really don't realize that on the spectrum of what I call wants and needs for scope and scale, people really won't pay for what they have. This new generation coming through, it's a phenomenon in itself. This is one of those market forces. The new generation coming through, I have an 11-year-old. He didn't want to pay for things. He thinks everything should be free. How do you run a business when everything's free? It's free. His videos are free. Everything's free. So his paradigm is it's all free, Dad. So I don't know why you get worried about bills or paying for things. It's all free.
That's a great point, Ken. So what do you say about that? So what do you say about this expectation of new generation and new business model, which are primarily focusing on let's figure out the growth. We'll figure out the revenue later on. And many businesses, they just keep on raising. Most of the like Silicon Valley, in any market you look at today, they're all going through their bubble, in which they're still figuring out their way to revenue model, and they're just raising like crazy. How would you grapple that fact?
Well, I think the message I've gotten in my 40-year career now is that all markets, all industries, all companies are under attack. They are all under attack to be commoditized. That you're going to, at some point in time, probably have to offer your products or services for almost no margins or for free. You go back 10 or 15 years, well, let me go back 20 years. I remember doing video conferences like this were $1,000 an hour.
Hmm.
Today, there's so many platforms I can't name them all. And so my point being is that, you know what, the problem anymore isn't video conferencing. The problem today is how do you monetize video conferencing? And that's where businesses have to come along and say, gosh, I need different revenue streams. I need to offer a different model to doing this to solve the problem, because the problem's changed, the market's changed, and the money disappeared. And so it brings up another point I want to share with you. Working with large corporations, they almost all of them have some form of change or transformation initiative. But there's some phenomenon about companies under 100 million, especially private, they don't have a single change or transformation initiative. And to me, that is like you're getting to choose your death date.
Hmm.
Because that model, whatever you're doing, and I don't care what it is going to be wiped out, or competitors will come in and take it over. And so you should be constantly working at. Now we don't be whipsawing, and too many entrepreneurs, they actually do too much experimenting. But we do want to have in place some initiative that's saying, hey, is this helping us adapt? Is this helping us be ready? Is this helping us stay optimized as the markets are changing? So for example, I have friends in the speaking business that was their model. That model's gone, and they're trying to make money doing Zoom presentations. It's just not there. So now they're having to try to adapt to other methods and models. And I tell a lot of people, I go, you can't repair your house in the storm. You got to prepare your house before the storm comes.
That's a very clever point. So in your journey, when you talk to many of these customers, what are some of the misconception of revenue that you keep hearing, that you say, okay, no, it's not that hard. It's just, so what are some of the misconceptions that you think that people have?
And I wish we had 2 days because I have so many. I think that the first one is all revenue is good revenue. And I'll start at the very top that, all clients are good clients, or all clients are the same. But all revenue is not good revenue. There's quality revenue. There's high margin revenue. There's ease of revenue. It's really a spectrum of different things. And when you can organize your business and design your models and your methods and follow a roadmap, it can take you more toward that high quality, predictable, profitable, repeatable, scalable revenue. But too many revenue is revenue, sales is sales, a dollar is a dollar. And I'm like, oh, I wish you wouldn't think that way, because it really isn't. And I spend a lot of time helping companies understand how to identify and attract what I call a perfect client profile. Not be all things to all people, but actually identify who is your best client? Who do you love today? Who would you like to have more of? And then I ask this question: why haven't you designed your company to attract more of them and retain them forever? And they don't have an answer. They just hope that they'll attract the best clients. And I'm saying it doesn't work like that. Your competitors are fighting. Everybody wants that best client. If your whole organization, your enterprise isn't designed to attract that best client, you're not going to get them, or you won't keep them. And so I think I'll just start at the very top. All revenue is not good revenue.
And that's a very fascinating point. So what would you suggest to these guys? Like, what would you suggest are some of the quick fixes? So if I'm struggling with my revenue, what are some of the quick fixes that you could suggest to some guy like me? Okay, just look at these things and maybe you're somewhere there.
Yeah, the thing I've spent the last 20 years creating, validating, proving is that um, no longer here's the model, and let me explain the new model. The old model was, again, if I offer it, they will come. And it was kind of like that was the golden key to success. If I offered superior products, excellent customer service, or a wow customer experience, you've heard the speakers and all the books on these topics,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a really successful business. Those days are gone. They're absolutely gone. And so that golden key to open that padlock to get the profits and that treasure chest, or cash in the walls, as I call it sometimes, the key doesn't work anymore on the lock because it's a combination lock. You have to go through a series of steps, a series of phases. You have to know the turns, the steps, and you have to do them in sequence to unlock that lock today, to get to the treasure of profits and sales and revenues. That every company has potential. It's interesting. Literally every company in the last 1,000 I've walked through is barely scratching the surface of their sales revenue and profit potential. They're growing at 20%, where we've had clients that could double. We had one client, a $5 million client. They doubled their revenues in one meeting. They literally walked out of a meeting with a $5 million contract because they understood, and I helped them understand that if you'll go through this sequence, if you'll follow this combination of work, put these principles in place from your FMP to your targeting, your packaging, your messaging, and your pricing, if you'll put these in order, your potential is amazing. And what I mean by potential is bigger, better, and contracts that are higher margin, easier to get, and will come to you. And when we can do that, when we can attract the best clients and who don't buy on price, and you can spend the least amount of dollars and resources and headcount getting it, that's how you create wealth. And it's more important today than ever that you're creating wealth inside your business.
So if you are an entrepreneur, and if you're, say, if someone is listening and watching this and saying, okay,
Yeah.
revenue is important, I get it.
Yeah.
In an entrepreneurial journey, or in a journey of a startup incubation, when would you think I should seriously consider that, okay, revenue is a thing, or like how would you address that if you're discussing this with an entrepreneur, that, okay, I don't even know whether I've just got this handkerchief and it has the business model in it, I don't know whether it works or not. When should I be really focused on, okay, I need to put something on the revenue side? What would you say?
The first day. The very first day, and this is what I call revenue ready. So after you identify that problem in the marketplace, and you come up with a unique model to solve the problem and deliver on the products, services, or solutions, the next one is the revenue streams. How can you make money off this? And a friend of mine who actually wrote the foreword for the book, I remember talking to him years ago, and we were talking about this very subject. He said, Kent, the real secret is, when you think you've got something, share it with somebody and ask them to write you a check. If they'll write you a check, you have a real business. If they won't give you money, you don't have a business. And that's the essence of revenue ready. And people are like, well, I got to build it first. I had coffee several months back with a friend. He's already put $500,000 into a product, and he was asking my opinion. I said, you already spent $500,000 too much. And he goes, well, no, I've got to have it. I got to show it. I got to prove it. I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. You have to sell the concept. You have to share the value proposition, and then ask people, what would you pay for this? And now after, I think, 2 years and close to $500,000, he doesn't know what people would pay for this. And that should have been one of the first questions. And so if I build this, what would this do for your business? How would it impact your business? How would it make you money or save you money? And what would you pay to own this? You want to ask that question the first day you think you've got a concept, an idea, or a prototype. And I wouldn't even go any further, because here's what's interesting is investors and eventually buyers someday, they're all going to ask you that question. What's the revenue potential of this product? What's the revenue potential? What will people pay? And how many people will pay that? And that's one of those questions that And what happens, I see it so many times, is we become emotionally connected to our product, and we're taught you have to be passionate. Stop that. People don't pay you for passion; they pay you for impact. Nobody buys and says, "Oh, you're so excited about your product, I'm going to buy it from you." Maybe back in the '80s. Today, the game is, if that doesn't help my business, if that doesn't improve my life, if that doesn't solve a problem, it's not worth anything to me. As a matter of fact, even if it does, I still don't want to pay for it. And so this whole revenue piece is more critical than ever because it's harder to get capital and there's more competitors. And that product, as soon as it shows up on Amazon or somewhere, will probably be built in some foreign country overnight.
Okay, so if I'm a business, if I'm growing, I've shown growth. Everything looks fascinating, and I think many people call it. I'm a very big bad business, right? So I have growth, I have no idea of revenue, right? So I'm just, how do I start? Like, what should I do? I need to hire a team like yours?
Yeah.
How would I sort of, now I want to fix myself? I know, and
Yeah.
I can't sustain like this. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so the first thing I share with anybody, if you just got a few dollars, is learn the roadmap. Learn that in what I've spent 20 years and probably over $1 million investing, proving, validating in startups to billion-dollar firms, is there is no secret to business success. There is no guaranteed, if you do this, you're going to make money. But there is that roadmap, that combination lock, and that's the first thing you want to learn. And it's like me. I didn't write a book because people need more books. I look behind you. Look at all those books. You don't need another book, but you need a roadmap to understand how to convert your products, services, your concepts and ideas into dollars and cash. You need to know what's the fastest, most efficient way I can turn my concepts into clients, cash, and contracts. Because that's the number one failure point for entrepreneurs in every business today is they've got the goods. They're great at what they do, but they're not great at making money doing it. And that's the thing you have to solve. And so to do that, once you learn the roadmap, or go to my website, watch my videos. The key here is that, and if you want a company like ours to come in and help you, we'll help you implement and understand that roadmap. What's interesting is that our whole premise, our whole value proposition is helping you generate those revenues, those sales, those profits with the resources you already have. It's fascinating that most small companies can double or triple their sales revenue profits without adding a headcount, without spending another dollar on marketing or social media, and not working another hour. The small companies are so easy to double and triple the size, but you have to know how to do it. You have to know the steps. And I've talked earlier about revenue ready, how the problem you solve, the model, a unique model in the revenue streams. You've then got to really work through getting this market ready, which is, who are you targeting? Who is that perfect client profile? And in that, what are the demographics, psychographics, and then the characteristics? Who is it that I want? They want us. Who is it that will pay top dollar for your value proposition? And then how do we talk to them? And then as I move through it, what I call market ready, you want to go through those phases. And this is interesting. An audience the other day, this was their big takeaway. And I said, if you haven't gone through the process of revenue ready and market ready, I can almost guarantee you every dollar you spend on marketing and sales is an expense versus an investment.
True.
And the whole audience just froze because they were like, wow. And I said, that's the separator between the true entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial business leader, is they understand the difference between a cost and an investment. And if you don't understand that, then what happens is you go to market and you start selling. If it's you or you have a team, or if you start spending money on social media and digital marketing and SEO and all those other things, that's just money that's flying and it's not providing a return. You're buying activities hoping for results as opposed to investing in production that guarantees results. So that's one of the core messages that I just work so hard to help people understand is For you to generate the most revenue possible and have a highly successful business and to create that wealth, you've got to understand when are you investing and when are you spending. And that's a lot of the work we do is to help companies understand that. I come from the large corporations. I've had, I don't know, thousands of people reporting to me. I don't get excited about headcount. I get excited about results. I don't get excited about activities. I get excited about production. And learning those things is very important to be successful, whether you're a startup or you're a billion-dollar firm. Yeah.
To your point, who is responsible for revenue? So if I need to point finger in my company,
Yeah.
who should I be looking at as some wisdom or at least the guiding light to just at least get things going? Who would you point?
For umbrella revenue, which includes sales and then non-conventional sales, that is the CEO, the leader, the president, the entrepreneur, the person at the top. Now, sales is responsible for accountable for sales, but shouldn't be totally responsible for all leads and client demand. And you bring up a great point I'd like to expand on. One of the failure points today, and gosh, almost all companies, is that either marketing or sales owns leads or they outsource it. And I'm like, well, actually, no. I want parts of your enterprise, all parts, including your strategic partners, responsible for creating demand, but I like to see marketing accountable. And what I mean by that is I want the enterprise all helping attract new clients. I don't want everybody in sales. I can't stand that. It's just a turnoff. But I do want everybody creating demand. You can get leads and new demand from your support organization solving clients' problems. You can get new demand, new contracts, leads coming from delivery or operations. You can get leads, some of the best leads ever coming from your strategic alliances. Well, those should all filter into marketing, and marketing must be accountable that the company is getting the number and quality of leads it needs each month. They're accountable. Sales is accountable for conversion, turning that prospect or contact into a contract. They're accountable, but all, again, parts of the organization and the enterprise should support the conversion process and take some responsibility in whether the company is producing its sales numbers or not. It shouldn't be on the shoulders of individuals, and it shouldn't be on a department. It's got to be holistic today. It's got to be what I call a systems approach. So I hope I've answered that question properly. Is at the end of the day, it all comes to the top. But then we have different departments that are accountable for the responsibility from everyone. This is how we optimize your sales revenue and profits with minimum resources, creating wealth.
In your journey so far, helping thousands of companies getting the revenue model right, have you ever given a pass to someone saying, "Okay, your growth is amazing. It's okay. Just don't worry about the revenue"?
There are times I've wanted companies to focus more on the profitability side. In other words, their growth might be so fast that they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. I'm very much about controlled growth, but that doesn't mean there's a CAGR number. That doesn't mean that you're at 20% compounded or 40% compounded. I think there are years in there you might double. There are years in there that you might hit 30%, and that's achieving optimization. Now, in the public companies, and I've helped run public companies, I mean, those are already dictated. You've got to hit a particular 20, 30, 40% CAGR because the analysts expect it. So now we have to kind of massage and manage the demand to do that. But in some cases, I actually want to roll companies back if they're not making money. Because, see, at the end of the day, my premise is creating wealth. My premise is not how big you are, not how fast you got there. It's creating wealth internally for you, because wealth in a company, the cash flow, the cash on hand, the working capital, that's just solves 99% of all business problems. I want to share a statistic with you. This is interesting. 98% of all entrepreneurs struggle with cash on hand, cash flow, inconsistent cash flow, almost no working capital. That was pre-COVID.
Wow.
Now that we're in COVID, it's just they're being slaughtered. And that's because they never understood, oh, my business needs to make money. My business needs to generate profits and cash flow for the good and bad times. And so there are times we can have that fast growth, that fast revenue growth and extreme profitability. That's beautiful. As a matter of fact, I like that, but I always want the profitability first. I always want the company, if that's their goal, to be attractive financially, to give them the cushion inside, take the stress off of them, or have the investors or buyers look in and go, wow, that's a phenomenal economic engine. I will pay you top dollar. Had a client that, and I don't remember the original numbers when we started, 5, 10 million, 15 million. I transformed their sales force, really helped with their messaging and some other work. They sold somewhere between 125 and 150 million. It was far beyond what the CEO had ever expected. And what happened was we got their economic engine running so well that they had buyers auction. They had buyers bidding and then bidding up the value to buy it because it was so attractive. And that's what you want to focus on. And I also tell entrepreneurs and business owners, because I have clients that are they own family businesses. They never want to sell them. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I want you to think or plan that you would one day. I want you to plan. You saw the old franchising phrase: plan that you're going to be a franchise someday, whether you are or not. And it changes the dynamics, because now all of a sudden it becomes a system and not a family running things. It becomes a system, not lots of management. It becomes a system versus putting pressure on all the people to hit those numbers. So those are some examples to help.
So this is the perfect segue to your book,
Okay.
Entrepreneurs to Millionaire. So
Yeah.
I think so. When I heard your title, and full disclosure, so first I was bummed out. It was like such a cheesy title, right? So, but
Yeah.
then as an entrepreneur, when I think about it, I'd say no, it makes perfect sense. Although you're running a business, the business is showing good numbers, but you end up like many of us don't take money out of the bucket, so we don't systematically plan. And I said,
Yeah.
this is, if you're an entrepreneur, to you this is very very apt title. That it just raised the antennas. That okay, yeah, like you should think about the millionaire part slightly more, because otherwise you'll have a massive business and you'll just always be afraid of taking anything out of it. So
Yeah.
tell us your journey to picking that name.
Oh yeah, and I love that question. Thank you. Because the word millionaire has been hijacked, and it's kind of has different connotations. But the way I want people to look at it is, if you think of, there's tens of thousands of businesses right now, and if that entrepreneur had 7 figures in the bank, they could get through the next 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, without having that million, without having that money in the bank. They're going to close in those dreams. And I have to share with you, there are really great companies with really great products that are going away forever. That's the thing that really tears me up. There's a restaurant in our town that closed. It was a really great restaurant. We'll never see it again. And all the people that were employed there, those jobs are gone. So that's really tears me up. But I'll give you the insights of how the name came. I was having lunch with a friend one time over here near us. There's a town called Addison in far north Dallas. And we were sitting at lunch, and I was kind of explaining what I do. And I said, hey, I can walk inside any company. I can triple their sales, their revenue and profits using their existing resources. And I went on and on. He just kept eating. He goes, yeah, that's great. Okay, that's cool. You sound like everybody else. And I'm like, wow, that didn't connect. And I'm like, no, that's not like everybody else. Nobody's got that kind of value proposition. And then I said, well, let me share with you. And I started pointing around while I was in the room. I see, okay, right over there was a technology company. There was a software firm. Over here was a staffing company. Over here was a wealth management company. And I just kind of went around. I said, within a few miles, these have been all these clients that I've helped make millionaires and multimillionaires. I have taken so many entrepreneurs to millionaires that you wouldn't believe it. And all of a sudden, that connected. All of a sudden, he stopped eating. He looks at me and goes, okay, now how'd you do it? What are you what are you doing? And this was several years back, and it was interesting. And I was working on the book and working on titles and working through that process. And I went back to that story and I go, what was the thing that's connected with people as I've spoken around the world? And it's the fact that so many people want to be entrepreneurs and so many people want to be millionaires, but they don't know how to go from here to here. They don't have a roadmap. They don't have a methodology. They're just throwing things at the wall, hoping they're going to be successful someday. And I said, and I was working with some of my friends consulting me through the publishing process. I shared with them, Entrepreneur to Millionaire, and I gave them other titles, and they're like, no, that's it. It's Entrepreneur to Millionaire. That's the path. That's the roadmap. You're an entrepreneur. What do you want to be? Do you want to like drive around, go, hey, I got a big company, or I drive a big car? No, you want to be secure. You want to have the money in the bank to do whatever you want. Now, if people want to buy gaudy, fancy cars and big mansions, that's cool. What I care about is, have they delivered phenomenal value to the marketplace, the community? Have they built a company to create great jobs for people? Have they helped their employees with retirement and put $1 million in the bank so these people can have good lives in retirement? So I look at that as, don't get hung up on a millionaire, but get hung up on the result, that what it can do for people if you follow this roadmap and do it right. And the title Entrepreneur to Millionaire isn't just about the leader; it's also about the employee. And I take pride in the fact in running public companies and running private companies, I've helped employees become millionaires sometimes within a year, and not because we were doing some real estate gigs or some crazy stuff. We were methodically delivering extreme value propositions to the marketplace, and we were getting paid to do that. These were from technology companies, consulting companies, all different kinds of companies that I've helped run. So that's really the title, or better yet, the roadmap, and getting you from there to there. So I love that question. Thank you for asking that.
Pretty fascinating. And another fascinating thing in your book is it's forwarded by Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
How to get Mark Cuban to forward your book? What's the secret sauce behind that?
Yeah, and so I've actually known Mark for 40 years, and I have to laugh today because once he became a billionaire, everybody was his friend. But although we went to the same college, we didn't know each other. We met in a parking lot in North Dallas at an apartment complex. I had just moved in. I had on my Indiana shirt. He was walking by and he said hi, and I said hi, and he goes, hey, I went to Indiana University. I said, wow, cool. He goes, my name is Mark. I said, my name is Kent. This was like 1982. I mean, close to 40 years. And so we've been lifelong friends, and I'll tell you, his journey has just been amazing. I couldn't be prouder of my friends like Mark that have just gone through the stratosphere. I mean, he has just been so amazing in his success. But anyway, so I had moved over to Hong Kong. I was helping run EDS Asia Pacific. And I moved back, built out a software company. I had a lot of success. I kind of retired. I was up in his suite. He had bought the Mavericks, and I was up in his suite at the Mavericks. I can't remember the exact year, 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. And we were talking, and he goes, Kent, what are you doing now? Where are you spending your time? And I said, well, I'm just working with a lot of companies at one time. I'm going in a lot of businesses for entrepreneurs and some CEO friends. I'm just working with a lot of companies. And he said, oh, okay. And as we were talking, I shared with him, I said, Mark, here's what I'm seeing. And it's no longer a pattern. It's absolutely consistent. Every company I walk into, they're really good at what they do. They have great products. They have great services. They have great customer experience. I mean, it's incredible. But here's the problem. They're not great at making money doing it. So few companies really make much profit. Their margins are thin. They're just, there are all kinds of cash struggles. And he nodded. He goes, yeah, I know. He smiled. And I said, I said, as I get more case studies and I work on this, and now thousands of case studies later, I said, I'm going to put together a book and talk about this. How do you solve this problem? And he made a commitment or a promise that night. He said, Kent, I totally agree with you. He said, you write the book, I'll read it. If I like it, I'll write the foreword for you. And I said, wow, okay. And And then, 3 or 4 months ago when I was getting the manuscript finished, I said, Mark, you want me to write the foreword and have you edit it? He goes, no. Now,
Wow.
Mark, Mark's not easy. Mark's demanding. And I mean, Mark's just going to call it out. And so I sent him over the manuscript, and I'm sweating for a few weeks because he could have come back and gone, this is total trash. I don't buy into any of it. I think it stinks. And he would have said that. And he wrote back literally a page and a half of a foreword, and in essence said, every entrepreneur needs to understand this. He said he wished he would have had it when he started, and it's a must-read book. And I sent his email to the editors, and they didn't change a single word. So the foreword that's in the book are the exact words that he wrote, because like me, we're all trying to help entrepreneurs. We're all trying to help business leaders be more successful. We're all trying, especially now today in COVID. I'm on a crusade like him and others. We've got to help you. My mission, everybody's got their mission. My mission is helping entrepreneurs learn how to create wealth. My mission is helping business leaders and employees learn how to create wealth inside their company. The failure rate for entrepreneurs and businesses is horrific. More stimulus money, all these, those are not solutions. Those are Band-Aids that will go away quickly. And I'm on this crusade saying, you got to change. You've got to morph. You've got to throw away your old models and paradigms. You've got to get onto a roadmap that helps you understand creating wealth inside a company. And so Mark wrote the foreword and sent it to me. And that's the story. And it's that literally, I planted that seed, 18 years ago, 19 years ago.
So I think so. So the summary is, be a friend of Mark for 40 years, and then probably he'll write. That's
well, and it wasn't a friendship, because we've battled it out on things. I've been with him many times, and we get into a subject. Oh my gosh, we don't talk politics anymore. We get into topics, and he'll go, I think you're blah blah blah, and then I'll get into it. I said, well, I lived in China. I know that. That's what I see. I mean, we'll fight. I mean, I can't say my ego's his size. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. He's just an absolutely brilliant guy. And I absolutely respect him and what he's accomplished. And I love the note of validation, because he would call it out. He doesn't just give stamps of approval.
So, who is this book for? So when you wrote it, like, who is in your mind, who is the ideal reader that you wrote it for?
You bring up another wonderful question. I'll tell you what, I wish I had more people like you interviewing me with these questions. I love them. What I have found in the last 20 years working with CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners, all that, is that my target audience has nothing to do with size of company, demographic, type of company, or any of those things. I'm targeting an entrepreneur who truly is entrepreneurial. Whether you're the CEO of $1 billion company or a $100 million division, or you're doing a startup, my whole message is, if you're a leader today and you don't understand how to be entrepreneurial, you're going to be left behind. And so my whole message is to those people that really are saying, you know what, whatever role or whatever company I'm in, I've got to be an entrepreneur today. But more important, I've got to give you this point. One of the big ahas is I was doing the research on my book, and I look back through my notes. I've delivered 10,000 hours of content around the world in dozens of countries. I look back through my notes and I said, what was it that made certain clients, or what was the differentiating factor that made certain clients so hyper successful, retire tomorrow riches, and just kill it, that one of my clients, I think he bought 5 homes on Lake Travis in Texas, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in Texas. He got 5 massive homes down there from the success of his business. And I said, what was it? And I looked through my notes and I studied, and I spent hours and hours and hours. And I came back and I go, almost everybody in our programs called themselves or thought of themselves as entrepreneurs. But the differentiating factor were those who were entrepreneurial. And that's one of the things I share a little bit about that in the book, is that you can call yourself an entrepreneur. That's a title, that's a tag, that's a role. But being entrepreneurial is how you think differently and execute differently. And so back to your question, and it's a great question. My book is for those people that say, I need to be an entrepreneur. I need to be entrepreneurial. I need to learn how to lead my company differently. Or I'm an employee. I don't want to be an entrepreneur and just go start a new company. I need to be entrepreneurial inside my company. And let me expand that just a little bit because it's so important. Because people are throwing these words around: entrepreneur, entrepreneurial, entrepreneur, all those things. And it's like, again, entrepreneur is just kind of a title. It's a role. Entrepreneurial, how you think differently. And some of those things that I observed in my notes and studies is what I call high spectrum entrepreneurial behavior. An example of that is that business owners, business leaders, they're all problem solvers. Being entrepreneurial was being very creative problem solver. An example of that is solving a very complex problem and not using any money or headcount or resources to do it. That's creative problem solving. And so what I've discovered is that most people, even if they call themselves an entrepreneur, are just small business owners. Or they're small business leaders, even if they have a big company. And so I went through, I started to identify these characteristics. I list a few of them in the book. Truly being entrepreneurial means understanding how to not take risks, because entrepreneurs take risks. No, learning how to take calculated risks. Being really entrepreneurial is when you understand the difference between an investment versus an expense. I'm back to burning money, spending money to make money, versus, wow, if I invest in designing the right sales organization, that will provide a return on me, versus I spend money and I get a lot of activities. So there's a lot of these high spectrum entrepreneurial traits that I discovered that separated out so many of these folks that just, literally generate a retire tomorrow riches. And that's the thing that I look for. That's the kind of people I want to come to me that say, Kent, I need to be entrepreneurial. I need my employees to be entrepreneurial. How do we do it? What's the roadmap? What's the methodology? What's the process? That's my mission to educate.
If you say someone who doesn't need this book, who would that be? Like, who would you call that? Hey, they are covered.
Somebody that doesn't need this book is probably not in business. Literally, they're not in business, or they're happy, they're satisfied. Now, I'll share this, and I may lose some friends here, but I sent this book out. I sent the manuscript out to about 25 people. 5 of those people, I only sent half the book because I didn't want it all floating on the internet. Half of those people chewed up that first half of the book, like within the first 24 hours, and demanded I send them the second half. Those 5 people are the most successful of those 25 people. Again, another entrepreneurial, not entrepreneur, but entrepreneurial trait is thirsty learner.
Right.
I don't want to be left behind. I've got to be the smartest person in the room, not the smartest over everyone, but I've got to be the smartest about this subject. I've got to be the smartest leader in how to create wealth. These people ate this up and literally demanded I send them the other half immediately. So within 72 hours, 4 days, they had read the whole book. They just gobbled it up. They sent me back pictures of everything they had highlighted, and they were chewing it up. And the correlation between those that are very successful running their companies and those that are doing okay were those that just gobbled this up. And so people that don't need this, I just say, are people that are satisfied or happy, or they've got a good business, and that's okay. The problem with that, because they think, well, my business is running okay. I'm saying, yeah, but what's the disruption you don't know about? What's the health crisis that's right around the corner? What's the issue you're going to have to resolve? One of your best employees quits and goes to your competitor. Every business faces these challenges and issues, and the only thing that will get you through them is the ability to generate cash and profits and create wealth inside your company.
So
if you don't want to do that, that's okay. That's not my perfect client profile. Yeah.
So if you want to say a rags to riches story when it comes to entrepreneur to millionaire book context, do you have any story to share with us? Someone who's like a picture perfect before and after model when it comes to the business model, how they transform their company?
Just hundreds, literally hundreds. And I'll just share one story that I think is a beautiful story of pure entrepreneurialism. The guy's name was Ben, and we had met. I was doing a seminar, and his marketing person was at the seminar, and she said, "You've got to come meet my CEO. We need what you've got." So I go to meet Ben and the executive team, and we're talking. I go, "Ben, tell me about your business. How'd you get started?" He goes, "Well, I was down in Houston, and this was 12 years ago, I think 14 years ago. I was down in Houston," and he said, "I just left a client meeting. I got back in the rental car, and I was trying to get through the toll booth to get to the airport to get back to see my son's soccer game." And he said that I got stopped at the toll booth because back then you had to have change. They didn't take credit cards. You had to have change or write a check. And the line was really long. He finally got through it, missed his flight, and missed his son, I think, championship soccer game. He was devastated. He was frustrated. And his background, he had worked at Microsoft along with some of his other executives. And he got home that night, and his son was really disappointed in him. And so he said to himself, he goes, "I'm going to solve this problem." He goes, I'm going to fix this. And so he got together with some of his friends and built a team, and they developed the technology. And the company's name was Rentitol, and they created the technology to go in rental cars so you could just drive right through the toll booths. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that today. But back then, it was a nightmare problem if you were trying to get through a toll booth in Texas, like many other states. Right. And so I met these guys when they were pre-revenue, and they were in my high-intensity ramp program for several years. And I know at some point in time, they sold right around 12 to 15 million. I know Bennett sometimes has said higher numbers, but they had sold for 12, $15 million. That was pure startup, pre-revenue. And I'll never forget in one of the meetings, Ben looked at his team, because one of the person was kind of hemming and hawing, and, well, if we just get the technology right, we'll be okay. And Ben looked at the team and goes, "Guys, we've been trying all kinds of different things. It hadn't worked. We're going to follow this path, or you're going to get fired." And that to me was, yes, I've got to have the person at the top say, "This is the path, everybody get on board." Because one of the problems I've run into in the last 5 years is I've got the person at the top that absolutely buys into everything I say. And then they've got the saboteurs, the passive resistant, they've got the employees below them going, "Yeah, that all sounds good, but this too will pass." And they're just going back to their day jobs, as opposed to saying, "I have to take some responsibility. I'm an employee. I have to take responsibility for helping create wealth." A lot of people just go back to their day job. So that's one of my favorite examples, because Ben was that entrepreneur. I helped him with 2 other companies. He's brought me into other companies. Him and his co-founder, Deb, worked with him, just loved it, because, at times they would say, "Well, Ken, explain it to us. So you're giving us this concept or this strategy. Explain why this one versus anything else." I love the debate, but if they go, "Well, we don't know if we want to do it or not," or I'd leave the room, they do something else, I'm like, why am I here? And so I'm not looking for people that just bow down and say, "Okay, we'll do everything you say, just your way." I'm looking for people that say, "You know what, we're willing, we have the will, we need the way, and guide us and explain it to us why it works this way versus another way." Because I've done this thousands of times in startups to multi-billion-dollar companies. That's all I do all day. Other people do the same job all day. And so it's like I've taken out 1,000 brains and put them back in people's heads. I'm the surgeon that knows how to do it, and I can do it faster, sometimes 100 times faster than anybody else. And so that's the client that I look for, that's willing to say, "You know what, we've tried other ways, or we don't want to experiment because we don't have the time. Give us a proven path and help us go through it."
So if anyone is watching this or listening to the show, and they say, "I want to do like 2 or 3 things," what are 2 or 3 things that they can do tangibly today that will guide them towards a better future when it comes to revenue generation? What would you say?
So the book is shipping now. The book just started shipping a few days ago. So the book is shipping. So you can get the book, I think, within a day in I don't know how many countries, but you can get the book within a day for you and your team. Start working through it. This is not going to be simple stuff. This is not get rich quick or here's some tips and tricks and techniques. This is a sequence of principles that feed off each other. So once you understand one principle and you're working to get the proficiency, then you're ready for the next one, insert in 4 different phases. But get the book, start reading that, watch the videos, read my blog, start getting you and your team thinking this way. Stop thinking about business growth, start thinking about creating wealth inside your business. And again, I'll share, creating wealth is when you can generate sales, revenue, and profits using the existing resources or no more time, money, and resources doing it. That creates that gap between revenue top line and cost that set up your bottom line. That gap is creating wealth. You want to read that, get everybody talking about this, and then reach out to me and we'll find a way. If I've got a program going on in your city, or I've got a workshop or a public event going, get you connected to that. I'll have some assessments and e-courses coming up pretty soon. I've got that out there. I'm trying to give away a lot of content. I've got some videos. The YouTube channel just went live, so I've just got a couple of videos up. I'm trying to get a few out every day, or one out every few days. But get educated. Get knowledgeable of the language, your perfect client profile, PCP, PMT, power messaging tools. Start getting that language. Start getting ready for the roadmap. And then when they're also ready, we get one of my programs, whether it's a group or a high intensity, and then really accelerate this and really help take your business off. And I'll just tell people, I go, your competitor is doing the same thing. Your competitor now is learning how to create wealth, and that's your wealth they're taking. So there are windows here that you don't want to be left behind, and you want to learn this new competency. It's not a skill. It's not a technique. It's a competency. Your company and your people need to be doing this. For example, pricing, multiple pricing strategies is a competency. It's not an individual with a skill set. These are core competencies for a company. Those have to be in place, and they have to fit together. A lot of my work is interdepartmental. In other words, marketing has to work with sales and operations. Support has to work with sales and marketing. It's interdepartmental. It's creating this holistic enterprise. Whether you got 3 people or 3,000, you've got to work as a system, as a holistic enterprise.
So in your journey, if you see a company, and so walk me through a company that doesn't need your help. So if suppose if suppose I'm watching this and I'm listening to this, if you say, hey, if you are doing blah blah and blah, you are covered, right? So what would that? So what would like 2-3 steps that I could think that you say, okay, you're onto a good start?
So a couple of things. One of them is well, here's the problem I always solve. And if you've got this one working, you're like in the top 1,000 of 1%. If you've got all the high quality leads, if you're creating the demand you need and it's scaling and growing each month and you're not spending more money doing it, then you don't need to talk to me. Because that's the thing I always fix. Every company is struggling with demand. They're struggling. They've got all the activities. They're doing all the SEO, the social media. They're doing all that. And they're spending a lot of money, but they're not getting the quality of leads they need. They might get the number, but not the quality. So that's the first thing. If you got that work. The other thing is that even if you're, then we look at the conversion side of this and say, if you're converting all the business you can handle. I did run into this. I was working with a kiln manufacturer one time, and he came to me and he said, Kent, can we stop the program for a while? I'm running 3 shifts. I don't have any more people. I can't make any more kilns. and I said, isn't that the problem you wanted? He said, yes. So yeah, if you don't have any capacity and you can't add any bandwidth on the operations delivery side, I don't want to choke the people in the kitchen.
I think that's a fascinating. So quality of lead, and you're saying conversions of those lead would sort of get you set up on. Yeah, that's a very good starting point. So I appreciate that.
That would be one situation that I'd almost welcome to see that, because I just never do. But if you've got the demand and it's growing, because a successful company, that can't be static. You've got to be generating more quality leads each month. Now, I don't want higher numbers, because you read my book, More from Less. I want you generating more business from less leads. But that's the first thing, because you are going to need more leads and all that. And then if you're converting them in a fast manner and it's costing you almost nothing to convert them. And now the other side of this, the third measurement I look at is if your retention is off the charts, if your retention is in in the 80%, 90%, and it's a perfect client profile. A lot of companies have high retention, but their quality of client's terrible. And I hear that all the time. Oh man, our clients stay with us forever. And I say, well, I'm sorry to hear that, because we've looked at your portfolio and you've got some clients that your competitors won't take. They're hard to deal with. They're a pain in the butt. They don't pay on time. They're actually crappy clients. So part of it is you want to look at your portfolio and say, is my portfolio 80, 90% of what fits a perfect client profile? That's another optimization measurement. Now, all that's fine, but here's the other side of this. To stay optimized and grow and scale is almost impossible. So for companies to say, we don't need you, I'm saying, well, maybe not right now, but in 6 months, 12 months, because the competitive environment has changed, the regulatory requirements have changed, the social and economic requirements have changed, or the marketplace. So change is always happening, because the other side of this, and for my more advanced clients, and there's a chapter in my book called Blueprinting Optimization. And that is all about continuous transformation. That's all about, that's that ultimate level of how do we continuously achieve and stay at optimization for year after year after year. It won't be with the same model and the same people and the same product and the same pricing. It won't last. Matter of fact, that used to be years. Those can be months now. And so in optimization, what are you doing right now to prepare for yourself? This book really, I committed to finishing and writing this book 3 years ago. So it's coming out now like it's so appropriate, the timing. No, I was, I've spent 15, 20 years gathering the case studies, but I committed to finishing it about 3 years ago. And that's my point is, you've got to be evolving and transforming your business now for next year and 2 years and 3 years. It's great to have this great vision of what you want. I'm saying, no, you should have a great vision of what you need to be.
Fascinating. So Ken, we are at the tail end of the conversation. So let's few questions about your journey. So
yes.
If I was to ask you, what has really helped you become what you have become today in your success, what would you attribute those qualities, or what is the secret of your success?
It's fascinating. Even in the corporate world, I was entrepreneurial. And some of the times that I had the most fun, I was paid the most money, and I had the most freedom, was when I had that job with no title and no role, and I was even a matrixed reporting. But I was entrepreneurial, and I was asked to go solve problems that were coming up in the company, or new problems and all that. And I really didn't fit anywhere in the org chart. And so I say this to everybody out there, everyone today. We don't need more entrepreneurs, but we need more people to be entrepreneurial, being extremely creative in how you solve problems. And everybody in the company today must play a role in helping create demand and then convert that demand. Every single person. And that's the thing that's helped me. That's the story of the Mark Cubans of the world. That's the story of business success today, is not having a title or a role, and not being an entrepreneur, but becoming truly entrepreneurial.
I think that's beautifully put.
The problems are more complex and challenging than ever. That will not slow down. That will only intensify. And that's the message I'm trying to teach my son today. I'm trying to teach him. I'm saying, you can be anything you want. I just want you to be entrepreneurial. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're an artist. You pick your path. But you're going to have to be entrepreneurial, because you're going to have to figure out how to solve problems. If you're a musician, how do you make money when streaming is free? You're going to have to be entrepreneurial.
So one more thing we ask all of our guests to share are some of their favorite reads besides this book. What would you say? Like, what are some of your favorite reads that you want to share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, and it was funny. I was telling my son the other night, I said, when I was in 8th grade, I read Think and Grow Rich. And and I kind of had this inkling that maybe someday I could write a book like this. But I read that book, and that really connected to me. And I said, I love this. I'm not sure I understand it all, and I don't know how to use it all, but I love this book. And it was the first. And I was talking to the librarian, and she said, yeah, this is called a how-to book. And I'm like, well, a how-to book? What is that? And she goes, well, it teaches you how to do things. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And I have said, and that's what I've tried to do today. I've tried to write the how-to book for entrepreneurs. I've tried to, so Think and Grow Rich, and I'm going to give you the roadmap on how to do it. Because and Napoleon Hill's and those classics, I loved all those books. They're inspirational. They're still good today. When I wrote this book, I wasn't trying to write the book for COVID or this year. I was trying to write the book that you're going to read 3 times, you're going to read 5 times, you're going to read every few years, and you're going to keep going back to the roadmap, because that's the beauty of Think and Grow Rich and these other books, is they're good forever. And so I'd have to say that How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, the absolute classics, and the how-to, or it actually has a new name today. It's not how-to anymore. And I've learned this through my publisher, McGraw-Hill. They're called prescriptive books. There's a prescription in here on how to do things. And so, that's that was my inspiration to do that. Yeah.
Fascinating, by the way. So great list of books. So we ask all of our guests to share. So this is the last but not the least question for the session. So if you want our listeners and viewers to take away something from this conversation, what would that central thought or theme be that our listeners and viewers should take away?
Yeah, I'll go back to this core point, is that whether an entrepreneur, business leader, an employee, the focus, what we've been taught, told, and sold, is to start, run, and grow a business, and you'll be successful. Throw that away. Get rid of that. You've got to elevate. You've got to transition today to say, you know what? Whether I'm starting a business or I'm running a business, I've got to be saying, how do I create wealth, not for me, but for the market and my clients, to make sure I'm around forever to continue to deliver the value that we offer.
Beautifully put. With that, Kent, thank you so much for being really generous with your time. And I think, as you rightly, I don't have to sell pretty much this book, to be very frank. I think very few times, as you rightly said, this is the apt time for value generation, and there are very few books actually that sort of give you some tooling and insights for that. And I think thank you for bringing in your perspective into the landscape. I could not wait to read your book, but wish you nothing but success on this journey. And please come back to the show and discuss with our listeners how the journey being. And do you have any plan for the sequel of this book?
I do. I do. And right now it's getting it out there and getting the roadmap, because this is actually the beginning. This is not the most advanced. I have about 600 modules in my programs. This represents about 20 or 30 modules. So if you master these proficiencies, I've got the next level, organizational architecture and more things to get very advanced and very sophisticated. But right now, people just need to know how to make money and create wealth. So that's where I'm starting. And then a lot more books. There's 3.
I was thinking one of the app title for a next book would be Millionaire to Billionaires. Because that's like good to great and great to
Mark asked me that. He goes, "What? Why don't you write Millionaire to Billionaire?" And I said, "Mark, I haven't made a lot of billionaires. I've made a lot of millionaires." And I said, "You're the billionaire guy. There just aren't there aren't many. But you know what? You can become a billionaire following this path because it will work." So I think I'll go to where I want to go to next is around helping the employee understand being an entrepreneur, being entrepreneurial. Because it really takes everybody in the company today. So that's one of the next paths I'm talking about. Also the leadership side of this. How do you lead with this thinking? That kind of thing. So there's a lot more to come. Right now, it's just helping people figure out how to create that wealth in the business.
Thank you so much, Ken. And I do appreciate you spending time with our listeners and viewers. And viewers and listeners, I'll put the link of the book in the description. and also Kent's website if you want to learn more on his practices, on how he's preaching this art of getting the business model right. And as I don't have to tell every one of you how important it is to get the revenue going. And I think it's as an entrepreneur, I can attest to it that having a revenue side is more critical than ever, because many of us are now tuned to train about the growth, but we rarely talk about the revenue. So I think this is pretty fitting on that. So with that, thank you so much, Ken, for your time on this.
You're welcome. I certainly enjoyed it.
I was homesick, never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick.